All right. Best Available Podcast, episode 37, April 19th. We have a lot of fun stuff to talk about today, but we can't get into any of that without making it clear that last week I was a hero, but this week my co-host is a hero. Matt got microchipped today, so Matt, let me ask you, how long did the process take you? It took me a little bit because it was a lot of people, but how long did the process take for you?
I would say the whole thing probably 30, 45 minutes.
Okay.
With 15 of that obviously just being you sitting there. Yeah. So and then part of it was waiting in line. I went at 8:30 in the morning. I said, you know what? I want to get my shot. First of all, this is like my Michael Jordan flu game. I got a needle in my arm, and now I'm doing a podcast later today. You had the similar situation, Ryan, a couple months ago with the tetanus shot. Yeah. That one was probably more painful than the COVID shot. But yeah, I want to give a shout out to the people who run this thing because it's, I never was stationary for any point other than getting injected and then sitting. So you went to Gloucester, right down where Rowan is. I went to the Morristown Mall, which is like our big mega site in our county, Burlington County. Biggest county in the state, by the way, for any of those who want to talk smack about it. You got all kinds of National Guard people there, doctors, people from our local hospital, I guess hospital network, right? Virtua, because they got multiple places. Well-oiled machine. Want to give a special shout out to all of them. Very friendly people. And yeah, and for anyone who's still hesitant about getting a vaccine, if me, who has the largest phobia of needles out of anybody, can do it, you can do it too. So, yeah. Those people who run those things, man, they see thousands of people a day. So it's really impressive.
It is really cool. It was a good way for me to not sit in the chair all day. I think that was my favorite part of it. I was up, walking. You're not really walking. You're more just taking some slow paces every once in a while. But I'm excited to get shot number 2 in a couple weeks. Not this Saturday, next Saturday. Of course, you'll get it soon after that as well. And then we'll be fully vaccinated, which is cool. All adults are now pretty much eligible. I got the alert on Twitter, out of all places. So go and get it if you haven't already. It should be a little easier to make an appointment now. We are a pro-vaccine podcast. I know we're going out on a limb there and making that public, but we're excited that we are a pro-vaccine podcast. And yeah, so let's transition now and let's talk about... hold on. I want to bring this up first because I have Audition open over here and I see the green bars. The color green apparently irks a lot of people, I've learned over my years. Anything green is just as good as anything blue. I just want to make that perfectly clear. Whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's a paper plate, a Post-it note, whatever. A green whatever is the same thing as a blue whatever. Is that too much? Is that a hot take?
It took me almost the entire time you were going through that to figure out what you were referencing. Ryan, I think that certain things, maybe if it's a message bubble, the blue might be better, a little bit more instant, right? You have features to where you could a message, you could dislike a message, pictures and stuff and media will come in quicker. The blue bubbles definitely are cool in that regard.
I bring this up because I get brought into a group chat and not even 8 minutes later, wow, I wish this group chat was blue, but someone just had to be different. 8 minutes in. Come on. And then somebody else has the audacity to say, what's even crazier is that this person has AirPods, but not an iPhone to match.
Yeah, that was me. For anyone listening, that one was me.
And then 2 days later, not sure what's worse. Messaging in the wrong chat, my messages not coming up blue. Grow up. All right? It's the same thing. It works the exact same way. It's a text message. Grow up.
Well, I'm happy, Ryan, that you took the heat off of me because I sent a message to the wrong group chat.
You
What's
did.
even worse is when I put the message in the correct group chat, nobody even replied to it.
I had seen it already, so it kind of took away some of the
Yeah,
luster.
I,
So
I take you out of the equation, but imagine my embarrassment with all my excitement after getting a vaccine. I went to go put it in our group chat, and turns out it was this other group chat that you're mentioning. Uh, we've all been there. Ryan, I'm sorry. I did not mean to bring the heat on you today with your green messages. But I think the AirPods are you starting to come over to Steve Jobs land and Apple. I really think that's the olive branch for you to start coming over.
I will never own an iPhone. You can write that in stone. Androids are better. We're going to talk about the NFL draft first. Then we got some Yankees. We're going to talk a little other MLB. The Dodgers and the Padres had their first series this weekend. The Super Duper Fun League was founded in Europe, and so we'll get to that later. But we're going to start the NFL draft. That is coming up next week. What would that be? 10 days, I think. And we haven't talked about it a lot yet, but we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about it next Monday. We're going to do a live draft show during the draft, so you get to hear us talk about it a lot. In case only one part of one episode isn't enough, you can hear two idiots talking about it continuously for the next week. I think the thing I want to talk about today, I think it's the most fascinating story. I've seen a lot of people say that this year's NFL draft starts at number 4. I think that's kind of stupid. I think it starts at 3 because it seems like Lawrence is going to go number 1. It seems like Zach Wilson's going to go number 2. And now everybody seems to think that Mac Jones is going to go number 3. He's the reason that the Niners traded up. However, there was a report that came out, I think yesterday, they had a heavy presence at Trey Lance's pro day. I'm pretty sure they've seen Justin Fields throw. So I want to start there. If, let's say, Goodell walks up to the podium and says that with the 3rd pick, the 49ers draft Mac Jones, what would your reaction be?
I would just be like, okay. I mean, I feel like the more we kind of think about it, the more it starts to make sense, whether it's a good pick or not, right? Because you and I are both anti-Mac Jones guys. I know at one point, I will admit, I was a Mac Jones person when people were saying he was going to go to the Patriots, but then I went and watched the tape, and it's not very impressive. Again, take it from someone who has never touched a football in his life, but be it as it may. I would not be surprised with Jones going 3rd overall. I mean, Mel Kiper seems to be 100% positive that that's going to happen. Other guys on Twitter are really leaning towards that way. I just think it won't be Justin Fields, and I don't know why. You and I talked about it maybe last week, how Justin Fields had one of the most accurate seasons in recent memory in college football. You and I seem to agree that he's one of the best quarterbacks in this draft class, but for whatever reason, Ryan, I don't see him going in most top 10s. I mean, he's dropping down to like 8, 9. So to me, I wouldn't be surprised if Jones got picked 3rd overall. I just think it wouldn't be Justin Fields.
The Field stuff is fascinating because for the longest time, Lawrence was always going to be number 1, but then everyone slotted him in number 2. They said, oh yeah, this guy definitely bona fide number 2. And then things kind of changed. Of course, nobody knew what Zach Wilson was going to do this year. Mac Jones, this has been a more recent thing, he's jumping over Justin Fields. Trey Lance was always kind of a question mark, especially because he didn't really play this year. But the Field stuff is just mind-boggling to me. You brought it up. If you look at the charting of what Justin Fields did in 2020, he had one of the most accurate seasons in college football history. And a lot of people like to try to use the argument that he can't really throw the ball that well. That's just factually incorrect. Like, you can hate the guy, but I think a lot of people are kind of looking at his helmet. Their common argument, he's an Ohio State quarterback. Those guys never work out. You got to separate the prospect from the helmet. Just because other Ohio State quarterbacks didn't work, that doesn't mean that Justin Fields is suddenly a bust. Who came from Wyoming before Josh Allen, right? Like, and listen, I get it that I was wrong about Josh Allen. He did really well last year. But who came from Wyoming before Josh Allen? It's just a stupid argument that, this school never has produced anybody, so this guy's automatically going to be really bad. Justin Fields, another argument I see is that he doesn't read the field very well, and I don't think that people understand that a lot of times that was by design in Ryan Day's offense. He wasn't asked to, go through a bunch of different progressions. He was just like, go here, and that's what he did. Some of the plays were long developing, which is why he locked on to guys. I think that will be fine in the NFL. I don't think that's going to be an issue. It's just I really think he should go number 2, honestly. It's just this guy seems like he's so full of talent, and yet, as you said, he's fallen down the draft board. It really doesn't make sense to me.
So, Ryan, you bring up the helmet argument. It's almost the inverse effect. The same people that are saying this regarding his helmet playing at Ohio State are the same people that say, well, Mac Jones, look at him playing at Alabama, like all the pro talent that Nick Saban has put out. He has the Alabama pedigree, the championship, on under his belt, like stuff like that. And to be honest, if you're using that same logic, quarterbacks out of Alabama aren't that great either, right? I mean, Greg McElroy, A.J. McCarron. Obviously, more recently, we're seeing some guys kind of poke through to Jalen Hurts. But for the most part, their track record isn't much better than Ohio State's. So I agree with you. I mean, listen, I think Zach Wilson has the developable arm talent like Josh Allen, right? Kind of like this guy who's coming from a lesser competition level at BYU somewhat, being an independent school. But I think Justin Fields is a can't-miss guy. And whoever gets him, listen, if he falls far enough down for my favorite team to get him, that's going to be just, see you later, rest of the NFL. Like, it's just sad. Because I think he's really good, like you said. You mentioned all the schemes and stuff. I see him as low as like 12, Ryan. 12. He's clearly a top 3 quarterback in this draft class, but people have Lance over him, Jones over him. It's fascinating, like you've said.
The Lance is a wild card. I like him a lot. I think that if you were going to trade up for any quarterback, if you weren't going to take Justin Fields 3, it had better be Trey Lance. The opinions on this guy, I think, are even more polarizing than Fields, if that's even possible. A lot of people said that you give this guy a year to learn, he's going to be the next big thing in the NFL. Other guys say, well, he didn't play the best competition in North Dakota State. I don't know how his skills are really going to translate playing against grown men. We've heard that before when guys come from schools like North Dakota State. I'm a big fan of Trey Lance. I think that he would really fit in well with what Kyle Shanahan wants to do out in San Francisco. It kind of blows my mind a little more why people would think that they're trading up for Mac Jones and maybe not Trey Lance. I just feel like he's a perfect fit for what the NFL is today.
Well, Mac Jones was barely a first-round pick at one point. He was like middle to late first round, really up until he won the national championship, and even after that, people were kind of talking themselves into him even more. At the end of the day, I really like Trey Lance too. You told me to go watch a tape on him back when I was kind of anti-Trey Lance. I did. The throws he makes, Ryan, are pretty impressive, right? I mean, some of those like Russell Wilson dimes over the top, right into the receiver's hands. I think he's more of a developmental project, as you said. But look, people forget Patrick Mahomes almost sat his entire first season, right? He started week 17 of his rookie year, and that was basically it. So you don't need to throw these guys in right away if you don't have to, but to take a year and develop, I know we're in this age of the quarterback has to come in and perform immediately. There was people at the end of last year, you and I talked about it, ready to move on from Tua. He didn't even play a full season. People were like, is he the answer? So I feel bad for all these guys that are going to get drafted this year because the scrutiny for young quarterbacks is just insane. Like, it's gotten ridiculous between even when you and I started college to now. But yeah, you know what the Mac Jones thing reminds me of, Ryan, is Blake Bortles. Remember when he was winning a bunch of games in college and people started to talk themselves into him a little bit and he rose really high, and look at what he turned out to be, right? I mean, that's the scenario I could draw up for Mac Jones, it is Blake Bortles.
I want to make it clear. I think Mac Jones, he's okay. I think that in the right situation, he can be a good quarterback. You don't draft that guy at number 3. I don't care if you are some offensive wizard like Kyle Shanahan. I think a lot of people they look at Kyle Shanahan and they're like, oh, this guy, he's really, really smart. He can't do anything wrong, this or that. I don't think he's earned that, like Bill Belichick. If he takes a chance on guys, like, Bill must see something in him. I trust him. I don't think Kyle Shanahan has earned that kind of level of respect yet. I think he still needs to prove a lot. So I really hope that this is all just smoke and mirrors. I hope that they don't draft Mac Jones number 3. I hope that they go with one of the other two options. I mean, speaking of quarterbacks, I did want to bring up another team, a report that I saw today, that Denver wants to trade up for a quarterback, a team that hasn't been able to find a quarterback in the draft in I don't know how long. They haven't really been able to hit. So you'd think potentially if they're going to move up, it would be to number 4 to Atlanta, who people have also said might take a quarterback. So Matt, you're Denver sitting at number 9. Is it worth it to try to move up to number 4 in your opinion to get the guy, or are you kind of just content staying at 9 and just seeing if somebody falls? I mean, there's a high likelihood that one of these 5 quarterbacks falls to 9.
I mean, I even think there's guys like Kellen Mond who would be pretty decent in like not the first round, right? I mean, he's like a second, third round guy. I mean, I think Kellen Mond could be pretty solid. Like there's such a big rush for these guys at the top, and understandably so. I mean, it's the most valued commodity in the NFL is the quarterback position. Listen, Denver. I went through this list with somebody a couple weeks ago. It's really long. Like, we used to make fun of the Browns going through quarterbacks. Denver's starting to get into that territory. And we talked about it back in like November with Drew Lock. Is he the answer? I still think he deserves another year because people forget Cortland Sutton got hurt week 2. He didn't even really play week 1. So he was without his number 1 receiver for the entire season, basically. On top of that, you had another rookie in Jerry Jeudy and not really much else around them. So I think Locke deserves another chance. But at the same time, if somebody falls, you take them. But I don't think you need to trade up. I think this is such a talented top tier to where even if you don't take a quarterback, Ryan, they're still going to get a good weapon or a nice, defensive guy. There's a lot of good corners that they could get too. So I don't really see the need to trade up and waste draft capital if you don't have to.
You look at some of I'm just going through their top passers off of Pro Football Reference for year by year. You've had Locke, Joe Flacco, Case Keenum, Trevor Siemian. You had Peyton Manning, who was good there for a couple of years, then he kind of fell off. Tim Tebow, Kyle Orton. I mean, they really haven't had a good young quarterback. I mean, I don't even think you can say Jay Cutler. I don't think he was that good at that point. I don't think he really blossomed until he left. You had Jake Plummer. He was good. So I'd say probably, I don't know. It's just been so long. Like, you'd think, especially an organization where you had Elway there for so long in control. They didn't even draft Jake Plummer, by the way, so I can't even use that as an argument.
Remember at one point, Paxton Lynch, Brett Rippon last year. I mean,
who was that other? They drafted. Who was that guy? He was from an SEC school. I think they drafted him too.
Chad Kelly?
Swag Kelly. That's who it was.
Did you mention Osweiler too? I mean, it's like the list is just long. And you mentioned the Elway presence there. I think that organization for the longest time was under tremendous pressure to just find the answer. I don't even count the Peyton Manning thing, Ryan, because if Peyton Manning wants to come play for you, he's going to be good, right? I mean, it's like the Tom Brady thing. It doesn't mean you know how to pick players. It's Peyton Manning. So if there's an organization that's out there that's feeling the pressure a little bit to kind of nail down a franchise quarterback, it was Cleveland for the longest time, and I think Denver's kind of overtaken them.
I think so too. I hope I always have a soft spot for a lot of Colorado franchises, so I hope they find a quarterback. I mean, when the Broncos are good, the NFL is really fun, especially in that division too. You're going to need a quarterback to compete. You can't just get by with these stopgaps, so I hope they're able to find their guy. If it's not this year, hopefully it's in the future. As I said, we're going to talk about the NFL draft a lot going forward, but I felt that it was important to kind of get on those storylines right now. We do want to talk about some baseball. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the New York Yankees, a team that right now sits at 5-10 in the American League coming into today. It's their worst start since the year we were born, 1997. Year I was born. Great year.
I was born that year too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
what I thought so. Yeah, I was pretty sure. I didn't want to lump you in there. Their bullpen has been really, really good. The rest of the team has been. I don't want to lump Garrett Cole in there. Everyone outside of the bullpen and Garrett Cole has been really, really bad. Aaron Judge has been okay, but we talked about it in our preview, the MLB preview we did. The biggest question with the Yankees this year was going to be the pitching rotation, and so far their big acquisitions of the offseason have not performed like the Yankees have needed them to. Kluber has started 3 games. He's pitched to an ERA over 6, a FIP over 7. Tyone in 2 games started has been even worse. His ERA is at 7.56. His FIP is at over 6. Domingo Germán has started 2 games. His ERA is an even 9 right now. His FIP is over 9. Jordan Montgomery's underlying metrics would indicate that he has not had a phenomenal start to the season. So it's been Garrett Cole and the rest. I said that for all these resources that the Yankees have, it seems a little weird that they've never tried to really address their starting pitching outside of Garrett Cole. And I get it. It's April 19th. It's way too early to be making any big takes. But it seemed like such a big obvious weakness going into the season. It's almost like I told you so a little bit. Everybody knew that this rotation wasn't going to be good, and yet somehow the Yankees front office is probably in a state of, what? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, yeah, the popular term has in our group chat and has been the Band-Aid rotation, right? Just slap Corey Kluber in there, slap some of these other guys in there like Tyone, and just see if it works. And listen, the Red Sox did the same thing. And it's just 2 completely different things. And I said this to Glenn and Zach to calm them down yesterday. I said, look, it's probably going to reverse itself by June like it usually does. I do think, however, that when I'm hearing these things from guys, I want to preface by saying as a Red Sox fan, I don't go out of my way to watch the New York Yankees unless we're playing them. But in any case, when I hear terms like, no passion, they're not really in it. There's no drive. That's a little harder to replace than just pitching, right, Ryan? I mean, to get the competitiveness for a team is a lot harder to do during the season. And, there's bulletin board material and everything else to try and find motivation. But if the drive's not there, that's an issue. You can't fix that at the trade deadline. And you could go out there and get the big ticket arm or whatever. You could get David Price, who I think is going to be a big guy in the trade market this year just because of the fact that he's not really doing much right now, just because LA has so many people. But even if you get a guy like him or anyone, if the team doesn't have it, they don't have it. And you mentioned it, it's April 19th. I never really am going to get too worried about the New York Yankees just because they're the Yankees. They'll figure it out. And if they don't, that's good for me because I'm a Red Sox fan. But it is a big I told you so moment for you, Ryan, because you were saying this right from the start. So
you can't win your division or clinch a playoff spot in April. No day. But you could put yourself a pretty far ways out to where you really need to be almost perfect over the final several months of the season if you have a bad April. Teams overcome a bad April all the time, but you don't want to be in that position because it puts too much unnecessary strain on everybody on the team trying to dig themselves out of that hole. And I think the most surprising thing about this Yankees team right now, not only has the pitching rotation been bad, that's not really too surprising, the offense has been dreadful. Gary Sanchez, for a catcher, you have to keep that in mind, has put up good numbers. So he's looked solid so far this year. He's getting on base at a 356 clip, which is really good for him. Aaron Judge, as I said, he's been good, an OPS plus of 140. He's leading the team in home runs right now with 4. He looks okay. Like maybe the on-base percentage could be a little higher. Higashioka, in 8 games, only 16 plate appearances, has seen the ball well. DJ LeMahieu, I'll throw him in there too. He's been pretty good. 375 on base percentage. The OPS is a little low, but still he's been pretty solid at the plate. But they get Rougned Odor. I didn't really understand what that move was for. He's been dreadful. Gleyber Torres has been really bad at the plate and in the field. I mean, he wasn't going to be good in the field, but now when he's bad at the plate, it just further hurts those issues. Urshela has been really bad. Frazier, Aaron Hicks he's gotten a lot of scorn from the Yankees fan base I've seen on social media. People are not happy with Aaron Hicks. Giancarlo Stanton has been bad. Just the entire offense has not been able, the entire team really has not been able to get anything going. It's just, as you said too, if that drive's not there, it's difficult to dig yourself out of that hole and maintain a positive perspective, a long-term view, especially when guys are struggling like this.
Yeah, and I want to preface by saying, that's all speculation. That's just stuff I see from the fan base on Twitter. And I see, Glenn saying it, other people saying it, that, they just, don't really have it. And you're not going to find, you can't just, pull it out of midair and just be like, oh, we got it now. We're going to be good. You mentioned the hitting aspect. Ryan, I'm going to use batting average again, a peasant stat compared to the stuff you use. But, guys are really not hitting very well. You look at Stanton's average, not great. Aaron Hicks, you mentioned it, the funniest number 3 hitter in all of baseball. I don't really know why that is. You look at somebody put it on Twitter of other number 3 hitters, like JD Martinez is on that list, other guys, and Aaron Hicks is the guy that sticks out. So I don't know. They'll figure it out, though. There's too much talent here for them to not win games.
Well,
but to be last place, though, Ryan, they could scrape their way to 3rd or something. Like the Red Sox, I would love it if they.
Listen, I said I don't like to make any big proclamations in April. Listen, I get it. It's fun to hate the Yankees, right? Everybody, the big money team that has all this money to spend, all these resources that some teams don't have. It's fun when they're not good for a lot of people. I'm not one of those people. I'm not trying to get a rise out of the Yankees fan base. I'm not trying to hate on the Yankees just for the sake of hating, but you're right. There's talent on paper, but it's just I know at what point you would really start to get a little concerned. I mean, the Yankees fans have been concerned since the first series. Pretty much, it seems like ever since opening day, they've been concerned about what the team is doing. But this is as I said it at the top, this is their worst start since '97. They don't. This is not normal for a team like this. So I'm gonna. You know what? The panic button is right here. I'm lifting the case off of the panic button, and my hand is right over it. I'm almost hitting the panic button if I'm a Yankees fan. Because as I said, if you dig a hole too deep in April, it's a little questionable. Even now, their postseason odds have gone down to 54.6%. That's kind of surprising for a team like the Yankees, with a team with all this talent.
Well, if you want to win the division, you got to beat the Rays. They single-handedly have played themselves so deep in terms of tiebreakers and head-to-head matchups with Tampa Bay. I still, again, Boston's leading it right now. I really don't think that we're going to sustain that for multiple months. But if we do, great. But again, you mentioned Odor. I didn't really get that. Jay Bruce is gone, which I think the fan base is kind of rejoicing about. I really don't think they really moved the needle in the offseason. You and I talked about it. They didn't really fix a lot of the issues they had. And Corey Kluber, okay. But Tyone, none of these guys are impact guys at this point in their career arc. So I think it shows that you see teams like San Diego, LA really going for it. And this core has been the same thing really since halfway through our college careers, Ryan. I mean, this has been pretty much the same core, the same team, and it's the same result every year. Either a loss to the Astros, lost to the Rays. I mean, it's the same result. So they're just a victim of not really trying to move the needle.
This team has won one series all season, and it was against the Orioles, which is not a big accomplishment. If you want, they're 2-8 in their last 10. If you want to be some type of positive right now, they do have some winnable games coming up. You have a 2-game set against Atlanta to start off this week. Atlanta's been mired in a lot of different issues, so they're not right now as strong as people thought they'd be. You got a 4-game set at Cleveland. That's a series you can win. You got a 4-game set at Baltimore. That's a series you should win. You should get at least 3 of those games. And then you end April with 3 games against Detroit. So, theoretically, 2 weeks from now, this team could very well be over 500, and all the complaints will stop, and they'll be fine. Until that happens, until I see this team beat the teams that they should beat, my hand is right over the panic button, and I am ready to press it. I'm ready. My hand is shaking. I'm so close to hitting it. But Matt, Boston's pretty much the team to beat now, though, in that division, huh?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. We got it. All right, clip it.
Apparently, they're pretty good. I'm just enjoying the ride. They did drop 2 games yesterday to the White Sox. They scored 3 runs in 14 innings yesterday. Not really good considering of the guys of Chicago in terms of who they were throwing out there. But then they turn around and beat up Giolito today. That was nice to see. Yeah, it's nice. I said it, and I got laughed at by some people. We don't suck. Like, we're not terrible. Like, we have the talent to at least be average. And it's showing, right? I mean, they could swing the bat well. The pitching's playing much better than I thought it was going to. I mean, even Garrett Richards, after his horrible, debut with the Red Sox, he's really kind of settled into being a little bit subpar, which, considering what we had last year, I'll take a little bit subpar over god-awful, which was what we had last year. So it's an improvement, and it's nice to see. It is making Glenn nervous, though. It is making him a little nervous. He was very upset last week during the winning streak. But to be fair, we won 9 games in a row, but then we lost like 3 out of 4. So it's starting to come back down to earth, but this division is a lot more wide open than I think anybody would have anticipated.
You mentioned earlier the Dodgers and the Padres, 2 teams that really went all in with acquisitions. So I kind of thought it made sense to talk about them too this week. They just had probably the biggest series so far in this short season. The Dodgers and the Padres met each other this past weekend, and the Dodgers won the first 2 games. They could not get the series sweep, but it was still an entertaining series. The first game was a lot of fun. That went 12 innings, and then the next 2 games were fun as well. These teams actually meet again this upcoming weekend, which will be good. Matt, I think the Dodgers are good. I'm pretty sure. I don't know yet. I think they're looking like they might repeat. They seem to have some talent on the team. I don't know if that's a hot take, but the team itself looks like it was pretty well constructed coming into the year based on what I have seen. It might still be too early. I don't know. They're 13-3. They seem to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. We mentioned David Price. He's just kind of throwing like an inning here and there. Like, that's how deep this team is. Trevor Bauer looks pretty good on his new team. Obviously, they're looking at his baseballs, though, so could be a reason why. Mookie Betts just rubbing it in my face about how good he is. But listen, those 3 games, Ryan, felt like playoff games. Like, they were electric. They were even better when you listen to the Padres broadcast with Don Orsillo. It was all over Twitter. He makes baseball games so much better when he's on the call. I still think it was one of the worst moves ever for the Red Sox to let him go. It just felt like a playoff game, right? I mean, the crowd was really into it. Really, that was the only electric crowd in baseball so far this year. Like, obviously, there's only 20% capacity in a lot of places. Some places have a full stadium, for better or worse. but it felt like a playoff atmosphere, and it was really cool. So I want to give a shout out to the Padres, though. They're going to be still the little brother in this division. It's just going to be how it is. It's just LA's like an all-star team. It really is.
The Dodgers are going to set the Major League Baseball win record in 2021, is my take. Is that a crazy take? What do you think? What is the ceiling for this team in the regular season?
I don't even know. Like, the ceiling is going to be as high as they can go. I mean, they don't have to make any moves at the deadline if they don't want to. They could just sit back and be like, you know what, we're ready for October right now. And we've mentioned it before, their AAA team could probably be a low-level Major League Baseball team. Like, that's how deep they are. The wins record, I would agree with you. I mean, it reminds me a lot of the Red Sox team from a couple years ago that just took off and never looked back. I think they're 10 times better than that Boston team from our senior year of college. So, yeah, it's going to be ridiculous. I mean, it helps when you get to play the Rockies like 19 times in 1 year. But yeah, it's impressive. It really is.
They lost opening day to the Rockies, and since then they've gone 12-2. I think that's pretty good. Carlos Rodon threw a no-hitter, so we had Joe Musgrove throw a no-hitter. We talked about that last time, and then now we've had 2 no-hitters so far in the first month, which has been really cool. We were watching that live. Unfortunately, he nipped Roberto Perez in the foot, and that ruined the perfect game, but no-hitters are still cool. It is only April 19th. I'm not going to throw out any hot takes with baseball. When we start getting into mid to early May or mid to late May, I might start throwing out the hot takes a little bit, but for right now, I'll let the season play out. And, we'll go. Matt Moore is bad, though. I think that's something that everybody can agree on. Matt Moore should not be in Major League Baseball anymore.
No, it's almost like Matt was right a couple months ago when you were saying that he was going to be like the next best thing.
Listen, I quote tweeted myself. I admitted that I was wrong. I said, well, nevertheless, he is not going to be in Cy Young contention this year. I was wrong. I apologize to everybody's hopes that I got up that Matt Moore was going to be in Cy Young contention. He should not be in Major League Baseball. We have some big soccer news to talk about, Matt. We talked about soccer a couple times. So the news came out that Jose Mourinho was sacked as the Tottenham Hotspur manager. Matt, what's your analysis about that one? That was a big news.
That was the biggest headline of all. Tottenham, it's pretty crazy. When I tried for like the third time when I tried to get into the EPL, I tried Tottenham. They have so much talent on that team, but for whatever reason, the leadership it is not with that club. Yeah, that was apparently the biggest news, Ryan. We do have to talk about the Super Duper League.
Well, no, that was all the news, so we're going to move on to Formula One. And they were racing this weekend in Italy at Imola. And yes, we do have to talk about the Super Duper Fun League. Officially, the Super League in Europe, 12 of Europe's clubs, the big money clubs, are apparently going to break away and form their own league. And I saw more vitriol about this last night than I think any other sports story in the longest time. I saw more vitriol about this than I did about the All-Star game in Major League Baseball being moved. People were pissed about this, from what I could tell. I'm a very, very casual soccer fan. So I needed to ask our soccer expert, who's been a lifelong fan of the beautiful game ever since he was old enough to kick a black and white soccer ball in his backyard. This seems like really stupid to a casual fan, especially now because UEFA is apparently pissed. Apparently, they're going to try to ban these people from playing in World Cup, other big international competitions if they do this. Like, I feel like that would be enough of an incentive to not do this. I thought these people wanted to represent their countries. Like, wouldn't that be like a big reason to not want to do this if you're a player?
Well, I don't think the players had much of a say in it. I mean, it's, for one thing, this is like the most American thing that can happen is the creation of the Super Duper League. Like it's structured the same way as a lot of professional major leagues or major sports leagues. The way things are done in Europe is a lot different. I'll get to that in a second. But if you're the United States, Ryan, in terms of the men's national team, you want this to happen and you want those guys to not play in the World Cup because then you're really going to have an easy path to get to where you want to be. Like teams like United States, Mexico, any of the CONCACAF teams, any of the teams from like none of our players are really playing for those clubs. So we're going to have our best guys in those countries wouldn't if that happened. I think that's going to be a big, big thing to keep an eye on. I mentioned how things are different in Europe. Like soccer has been around longer than really any of our sports over here. Obviously, just because Europe has been around longer in terms of like an organized continent. And it's a lot of like, the term was like grassroots kind of thing, like community bonds, like these clubs were formed in the rivalries. Like it's built a lot differently to where the revenue kind of gets shared amongst the the smaller, lesser level clubs to help keep them going. And in, everyone buys in American sports is a lot different. There's like luxury taxes and everything. There's a lot more revenue sharing. So this is like the huge money-making thing. And the reason, at least in my understanding of it, because again, I am a younger soccer fan than you portrayed me to be, that it's just a lot of rich owners that are trying to enhance the amount of money they make. Because that's what it seems like at the end of the day is a money grab. It goes against the whole kind of community aspect and like domestic competition. So yeah, I understand why people are upset. I mean, you mentioned people were pissed. I saw people crying, Ryan, on Twitter, like crying on TV about this. So it's a really big deal. It is really stupid. That's what the Champions League is for, at least in my opinion. You don't really need to create a super duper Champions League, but it's just a money grab. It's what it is.
So you said, I want to talk about this for a second. You said that this would obviously help the United States and their soccer program if these people are not allowed to play in the World Cup. Wouldn't, at that point, though, wouldn't there be like a bit of an asterisk, in your opinion? Because there wouldn't be enough of a challenge? Like, I get trying to just take what you can get with the state of things right now, but, like, that wouldn't really be the same, Like, there wouldn't be any sense of accomplishment at that point if the best players for each country are banned from it. I feel like.
I don't even think if it comes down to that, I really think some of the players will not play so they can play in the World Cup. And the way they described it is this is just like a midweek competition. They'll still play in their domestic leagues. But and for those who are like a casual soccer fan, it's very confusing when you first get into the sport, when you see like the English Premier League, the FA Cup, UEFA Champions, like all these different things going on at the same time. And now we have the Super League on top of that. The way it was posed is it's just kind of like another competition, but the fear and the reason why people are threatening a ban, they're threatening to like lock these teams out is because like the players could get hurt. They could eventually break away entirely and just form like an NFL of soccer teams and just have like a monopoly on the revenue, the attention, stuff like that. It's a lot different in Europe than it is here with sports because they will watch, people play in like a park around the corner, right? And that'll be like an actual competitive match as part of one of their leagues. But here it's like, if it's not a big stadium, nobody cares, right? So it's just a little bit different. There's a lot more community aspect in the old traditional rivalries. And that's one of the big draws for Americans getting into European soccer, right? And I know a lot of people are like that. They'll like the tradition of it, try to replicate that here in the States. And people were worried that it's going to kind of go away. So it's a valid concern, I think.
There's currently 12 teams that have made it clear that they are going to join this league. I'm going to mispronounce a couple of these. Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, Real Madrid, AC Milan, Inter Milan, and Juventus. How did I do? How many did I mispronounce?
You got 11 of the 12. It's like Juventus. Like, so you basically
Juventus.
got it.
Damn,
You
the last
basically
one.
got it.
Damn.
So, and another concern with it too is like all the good players in the world will just go there, right? I mean, it's like some of the leagues we have here, like in Major League Baseball, that's where really the best players in the world are going to go play. Same thing with like the NHL, NFL, like any league that we have. So that's another big worry too, is it kind of just takes every single good player and funnels it into this league, and then it really kind of impacts like TV deals, coverages, stuff like that. And it is big because these are like, for people who don't really follow soccer, and again, I want to preface by saying I came onto this in college. A lot of these teams are the most valuable sports franchises in the world. Like don't have the list in front of me, but I would assume most of these 12 are in the top 20 of all sports teams. Because they're like international brands. They're not just teams. And that's what they're turning into. And again, it goes against kind of the grain a little bit. And they're turning into like international corporations. So it's a really, like, these are the big power players in all of soccer.
It's interesting, too, because there's some big teams that have said they have no interest in joining this. So one of the Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund are a couple of them. The Bayern Munich manager said that, this is a quote, "I'm focused on different topics, but I can say that the Super League wouldn't be good for European football." And it seems like that seems to be kind of the general viewpoint among a lot of the people. So I said that UEFA is pissed, and they're going to try to ban people. FIFA, a few months back, said that they would ban players from participating in domestic and international competitions if they joined a breakaway league, and they still firmly believe that. It's going to be something. Neat is not the intriguing as to follow, as you said, just because this could really change the sport forever if this really goes through. I don't know. It's just it. As I said, I'm a very casual soccer fan, but this is a hot button issue, and I can tell that it was talked about for a while, but it really seems like I'm speechless. It's just I can't imagine what actual soccer fans feel like because of this.
It would be the continental version of like one of our leagues, right? Because it's like almost a monopoly, or at least my interpretation of it is it'll almost create a monopoly of players going there, coaches going there, coverage, money, revenue, stuff like that, fans, and yeah, it's kind of like the American way of looking at sports in a lot of ways. That's what I keep seeing. And I saw on Twitter some people were starting to try and blame Americans for that just because of how sports are structured and how a lot more revenue will come in and stuff. But it's so confusing. I'm still learning about it. I mean, I could be wrong on some of these takes, but like I'm trying my best because it's just we don't really see sports. Like, sports are more big time corporation style things in America. It's much more community based, which is what I wish in some ways it was here. I think that's a really cool aspect. And when you watch like soccer documentaries, that's like one of the first things that are stressed is like these old time rivalries, these like all this stuff. And to have it kind of commercialized in recent years definitely kind of hurts the game in that regard. Because I think soccer is one of the only sports that's still like that isn't fully commercialized. And I think that's a good thing.
It's going to be, we're going to talk about it again, inevitably. So it'll be good to keep tabs on that, see what really ends up happening with all this. I did want to just do my 30-second, as I said last week, Formula One thing. They did race again for the first time in almost a month yesterday, and it was a really, really fun race, really good race, really entertaining. I've become a big Formula One fan over the past several months. If you're looking for a new sport, I definitely recommend it. I talked about NASCAR a lot, but Formula One is, I think, a lot more interesting, a lot more fun. And that's come from someone that's watched NASCAR for years. Max Verstappen won yesterday, which was really exciting. Lewis Hamilton finished second. Lando Norris also got in the podium. It was just a fun race. They started wet, and then you got to go on the dry tires later. So right now it's a close race through for the standings. Lewis Hamilton is up by 1 point over Verstappen. So I definitely recommend getting into F1. There's a great series on Netflix called Drive to Survive. I know that's how a lot of people have kind of gotten into it. So I'd recommend that as well. Next time they race is May 2nd at 10 a.m. So they are going to be racing in Portugal, I think. Yes, Portugal in May. So a couple weeks from now. So definitely would recommend it. It's a really fun sport. NASCAR race to Richmond. It was certainly not as exciting, but Alex Bowman got the win, and it was the first time the 48 car has gotten to victory lane since 2017. And Jimmy Johnson had his debut IndyCar race yesterday. It was a big day for motorsports. Yeah, he did not do super great, but it was his first race. So that's your motorsports update. Fun.
Yeah. Motorsports. We got the Super Duper League, and we got your Formula One in there. I turned it on for like a lap, didn't really know what was going on, and then I turned it off. But definitely looks more high risk than NASCAR in a lot of ways. I don't know if that's true.
I think you can see driver skill more in Formula One. Obviously, that's kind of a stupid thing to say, but yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it should be fun all season long. If you have any sports takes that you would like to get out, because we are about at the end of our episode here. So if you have any other things that you want to make a note of before we part ways.
Chet Holmgren committed to Gonzaga, #1 recruit in this year's class. They got Jalen Suggs last year, Holmgren this year. You mentioned it right before we went on. It's almost like they're a good team. Some people still like to think that they choke every year because they play, quote, weak competition. I see that take way too much. Might write about it. I don't know. Mark Few's a great coach, great recruiter. You mentioned it too. We talked about it before. If Timmy and Nemhart come back, it's going to be like this year again. I don't see a lot of teams being able to catch up to them. So big hoops news in that regard.
You talked about writing. Before we part ways for another week, we talked last week about how the website was going to be redesigned, and that is officially complete. It was something that we worked on for months, but we're happy with how it turned out. If you go to our homepage now, we have a little slideshow with some featured posts at the top. All the latest podcast episodes from all of our podcasts are right on the homepage. You can play them from right there. There's links to other streaming services as well. If you don't like Spotify, the other links are right there. If you go to the podcast pages, the links to all your favorite streaming services are on each podcast page now, so you don't have to go looking through articles to find them. You can see a larger selection of latest written articles. You can see featured YouTube videos. You can see author pages now, your favorite authors, if they've written basically more than one post, you can find it. We also have a search thing, so if they haven't written more than one post, you can just search their name, and you'll see the article that they wrote. So a lot of fun things over there. We're happy with how it turned out. We hope that it's a little easier to find your favorite stuff now on the website. We think it is, so definitely go check it out. Works on your computer. It works on your mobile phone or tablet. We designed it so that it would work everywhere. So let us know what you think. We will be back next week, as I said. We have a full week next week. We have our podcast episode that will come out on Monday, and then we also will have our MLB NFL draft show on Thursday. That'll be on Twitch. We did the college basketball one, Selection Sunday, last month, and we're going to do another one next week. So be on the lookout for that. I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you all for all the support, and we will catch you guys again next week for the final episode of April. Enjoy the rest of your days.